The poem To His Coy Mistress is a work of metaphysical poetry where the speaker tries to convince his hesitant lover to engage in sexual intimacy. The speaker acknowledges that if they had infinite time, he would be content with their gradual progress. However, he highlights their mortality and how they will lose the opportunity to be intimate if they delay too long. The poem serves a dual purpose: to persuade the mistress to reciprocate his love and to reflect on the inevitability and repulsiveness of death. This philosophical aspect adds depth to the poem's commentary on love. The use of metaphysical imagery in this poem is highly regarded. Metaphysical poetry, which was popularized by a group of 17th-century poets including Marvell, is characterized by the use of extended metaphors and comparisons between abstract and concrete concepts. These poems often had philosophical underpinnings and experimental stylistic elements which contributed to their metaphysical nature. This particular poem embodies many of the characteristics associated with metaphysical poetry, including wit, hyperbole, a unified sensory experience, the carpe diem theme, and metaphysical conceit. The poem is meticulously crafted, utilizing literary devices and the poet's knowledge to create multiple layers of meaning woven throughout its texture. The opening lines of the poem utilize hyperbole, which is a central element of the work. The poet employs exaggeration to convey a sense of flattery and to assure his beloved of his love for her. The lines, "Had we but world enough and time, this coyness, lady, were no crime," represent a hyperbolic statement in which the poet imagines a scenario where they have ample time to spend together, making her hesitancy to engage in intimacy no crime. However, since time is fleeting, the poet suggests that it would be a crime if she does not submit to him. The poet amplifies the scenario by describing how they would spend their time, enjoying each other's company by the Indian Ganges tide or by the Humber. These exaggerations serve as an assurance of the poet's love and an attempt to flatter his beloved. Marvell extends his use of hyperbole in an attempt to flatter and please his mistress. He states that his vegetable love for her would grow vaster than empires and more slow, which suggests sexual eroticism and his admiration for her. He also exaggerates the amount of time that would go into appreciating her beauty, such as some 100 years for her overall beauty, 200 for each of her breasts, and 30,000 for other parts of her body. This flattery is used to elevate her status to one that deserves thus state, and the poet claims that he would not love her at a lower rate. Therefore, the poet urges his mistress to show her heart for him in return. In addition to the use of hyperbole, Marvell employs metaphysical conceits to convey his ideas in the poem. He beautifully crafts the following hyperbolic statement: "I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of Jews." Here, Marvell draws upon a conceit that combines two contradictory ideas of the flood and conversion of Jews to emphasize the idea of the end of the world. By stretching this idea, the poet exaggerates the end of the world in opposing terms to emphasize that he would love her before the world comes to an end. However, wit is another important feature woven into the poem. Marvell carefully structures the narrative of the poem into 3 parts. Upon critical examination, the division into 3 parts shows the use of adjectives if, but, and therefore. In the first part, Marvell uses adjectives such as if to express that if the world had enough time for both the lady and his beloved, then he would create lasting memories on this world. However, in the second part, the poet acknowledges the passage of time as he hears time's winged chariot passing linearly towards them, using the adjective but. Finally, in the third part, the poet and his beloved should at once our time devour and tear our pleasures with rough strife through the iron gates of life, using the adjective, therefore. These adjectives imply the passage of time and an attempt to persuade the beloved to submit herself to him. The poem displays the unification of sensibility which creates a tone of sensuality. Marvell combines his personal knowledge and emotions in the poem by using references to the Indian Ganges and Humber rivers, as well as the biblical flood and the conversion of Jews. He also employs the mythology of Apollo, who is personified as time's winged chariot. These aspects of knowledge are blended with the poet's emotions to provide his perspective on the world and to flatter his beloved in an attempt to persuade her to submit to him. The infusion of the poet's thoughts is harmonized with the message and the idea he wants to convey in the poem. The poem addressed the idea of carpe diem, which means seize the day. Marvell expressed his idea of the temporal state of life and the transient state which is inevitable. The message he delivered is the attention towards the creation of memories and moments before time consumes the youth and beauty of an individual. He states that thy beauty shall no more be found, and her body and long-preserved virginity will be devoured by worms in the vault, which shows the transient state of human life, and hence he draws an attention towards his message to enjoy the youth and beauty which sits on thy skin like morning dew, and sport us in amorous bird of prey, where both the couple will roll all our strength and all into one ball. Hence, the poet gives an optimistic note to create a lasting memory and moment, as the progression of time cannot be stopped, yet cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. Lastly, to his coy mistress is written in iambic tetrameter, and rhymes in couplets, that is, AA, BB, CC, DD, and so on. It has been recognized as one of his most famous poems, and there is speculation as to whether or not 20th century modernist poet T.S. Eliot was responding to Marvell in his famous poem The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Clearly, Marvell's work has continued to have an impact on literature, especially posthumously.